So I got that recording, and I've got this recording as well too. So, all right, here we go. Three, two, one. All right, Kara. Hey, thanks so much for joining me on. I hope you're having a beautiful day out there. I know we've got a little bit of overcast here in Wyoming, but it sounds like your cup has been full already with a lot of coffee.
It has, and it's a beautiful day here. So the sun is shining, and that always makes for a beautiful day. So
No
it's
doubt about
good.
it. Well, hey, I really want to talk today. One of the things I'm so excited to have you on the podcast is about just like building energy in our lives. And listen, we're all busy. We all know that. And we know that this industry as a whole can very much consume you in every avenue, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially if you really want to be successful. We know that that grind is just relentless. I'm curious to know, first of all, just give us a background of how many years you've been in industry, the positions that you have held, and now that where you're at in your life right now, and why you found this greater, or how maybe you found this greater purpose of what's driving you today.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, I mean, I think that, just my quick background is so I started in real estate in 2004. I was working for a builder at that time and, worked with them, had a lot of success. And that was '04 to '08. So, the real estate market was doing really well at that time. And then I transitioned over in '08, actually, was not really having, it wasn't so fun to be in a model home when nobody was coming to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there and seeing maybe one person a week, and I'm someone that needs a lot of, needs to see people and connection. So then I went into the resale side of the business. Then from there, built my real estate business. Was tapped by the leadership team of my broker to manage several of their real estate offices. So then for several years, I led other agents, led several offices within Long and Foster, which is a big brokerage here on the at the Atlantic coast. And then I kind of started to feel like I needed to really build my own practice again. I loved teaching and I loved helping other agents and help them, really create bigger visions for what they wanted out of business. But I started feeling like there was a missing thing for me and I needed to get back in and really make my own business. So I left the leadership role and then started creating my own team again in the DC metro area. So that's a little bit of my journey along the way. And I think along the way, I've done it two different ways. I've done the business where it was all hustle. I mean, it was like, grind, hustle. I, especially when I first got married and met my husband, like I was working just insane hours. And not that I don't work a lot of hours now,
Right.
but it was a different energy. It was all about just like pushing. And so um through that journey, I guess what I found, and some of it was just kind of burnout, but I've always had a spiritual practice, and I always kind of had an intention, but I wasn't as thoughtful about it, or I wasn't intentional about it, until I just realized like I can't do this forever. I need to kind of figure out a better way, and I need to do it in a way where I can be full myself, because if you're not really whole in your own self, then you can't truly give at, I think, and create bigger impact in other people's lives if
Right.
you're not able to, have that wholeness within yourself. And it was a little bit of just that kind of that realization and stepping back and then getting into a place where I started implementing more of a ritual in my morning where I could um, faith is a big part of that. And so have that kind of time for myself where I could fill my own cup, so that then I could give in a bigger way, throughout the day to my family and to my husband and to my business and my clients. So I think that like morning ritual for me is really, I believe, one of the biggest things that we can give to ourselves. And actually, you know, I interview a lot of, on my podcast, I interview a lot of entrepreneurs. And what I found is the common denominator is having some element of that, like having some element of self care is, I think, one of the biggest things that I found in all entrepreneurs, that are working at a high level is that realization.
So do you feel like is it confidence that maybe people are lacking? Because one of the things that we have identified, and especially a lot of agents, is this lack of confidence that they can be selfish with their maintenance, right? Their care, their self-care, as you were talking about. Was there a pivotal time in your life where that switched for you, or you had that aha moment? Like, tell us what that was like for you.
Well, quite frankly, I mean, I don't talk about this too often, but I was in a very unhealthy relationship. Actually, was not my husband, obviously, but I was in and I realized that I was really very codependent on others, on my job, on that relationship for any sense of fulfillment. And so I was doing really well, like, but I was at the end of the day, if all of that was gone, when all of that kind of like went away, when the relationship went away, I kind of was really a puddle of mush on the floor. And so I did go through, I would say, a big self-reflection on like what it was that, like, who was I really and who did I want to be in the world. And through therapy and some other things, kind of came to, I guess you could say, more confidence, right? Because in that I realized, wow, like, what is the vision that I want to create, and what do I want for myself? And so I started to define more clearly, like, what do I want out of a relationship? Who do I want in a partner? Like, not what do they want out of me, which is how I'd been looking at it before. And how can I change to what mold to what they want from me? But who do I want to be, and what do I want in the world? And from that, I'd say, like, journey, then, and literally part of it was actually writing down on paper, like, what do I want in a partner, in a business, what, like, being very reflective about it, and then starting to believe that it was possible. So part of it is creating the vision of what you actually want, because if you don't have a vision, then you're never really going to get there, right?
Yeah.
And then stepping into a place where, and I use a lot of affirmations and positive, I think when you were on my podcast, you talked about rewriting your story. And I absolutely believe that it's about the story you tell yourself. Like, what are you telling yourself on a minute by minute, day to day basis, of who you are and what you're capable of? And when you start to rewrite that story, when you start to believe that you're worthy of big things, that you're worthy of love, that you're worthy of, you know, clients and people that you can really serve, like, then things start to shift in your life.
That's great. I'm curious to know, as you've had success, you've also had setbacks. You've had some failures, and any successful person, you're going to do that. You're just going to fail in life. And one of the things that I think that is really powerful with people that continue to break those next levels of their career, next levels into their personal life, is that they're able to get over failure. They've got maybe they've got a system, maybe they've got a sequence of things they say to themselves. I'm curious, because I know you're human, and I know that you experience failure, setbacks. How do you deal with that? Is there a way that you deal with it? Is there an emotional state that you have to get to? What's your process of dealing with setbacks?
I think you're right. I mean, there's always going to be something that comes up in life, right? And I think the key is not letting yourself dwell in that place too long.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I if there is rejection, right, which is part of our business, like, not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. I may not be the right person for them. They may not be the right person for me. So, but understanding, like, allowing yourself to feel it, and then kind of moving on into and getting over it. Right. And some of that, I think, is I mentioned my morning ritual.
Mhm.
So that for me is just a very sacred time every morning, that when I don't create that time for myself, my day is not the same.
Mm.
And so, practically speaking, what that looks like for me is I wake up before everybody else in my household, right? And some days are better than others. Sometimes I get more time than others, especially because I have a 5, 4, and a 1 year old. And so my 1 year old is a little unpredictable in his wake up time.
Yeah.
Uh, so I just try to create at least a half hour, but usually more like an hour to an hour and a half, and maybe sometimes two. Um, to have to myself. And what I do during that time is I spend time in prayer. Um, I spend time in gratitude. I spend time in visualizing anything that I have that day that's going on. Like I visualize literally like what I want those conversations or appointments or meetings to look like. Um, and I do have affirmations that I say, about, the income goals that I want to create. And just that, one of them is just that I attract opportunities to help people, every day. I mean, it's very simple, right? But I believe that when you are in a space where you expect good things to happen, then sometimes bad things may happen, but you're not as aware of them. Like you just don't dwell on those as much because you're like, okay, well, that was too bad. But, I'm expecting good things to unfold. And I don't know what that could potentially mean. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe that negative thing that I perceive as negative is actually putting me in a different conversation with somebody else that's going to open a bigger door. Like you don't know what God has in store for you.
Mhm.
And so all you have to do is trust that the plan will unfold for your highest good. And we may not be able to see the bigger picture, but if you understand and trust and hold the belief that good things do unfold for you, then they will. They'll just
Yeah,
naturally open.
that's great. It reminds me of like that setback could actually be the setup for something even
Yes.
greater in your life. And I think it sounds like that's what you're saying here. I'm curious to know, as a woman in this industry, you've got you've got a significant other that plays a big part in your success,
Hmm.
your success in business, but also just in your success, in your happiness, and that support. I know that talking to enough real estate agents, especially women, one of the things that they struggle with sometimes is that lack of support or
Hmm.
lack of the lack of their spouse supporting their success, because sometimes that success overshines the other person's success. I'm curious to know is first of all, has your husband always been amazing and supportive of all of the things that you've done? And then secondly, what would you say to a female, a woman that is kind of going through that, where she wants to be successful? She knows she can be, maybe she really already is, but she doesn't have a significant other that's as supportive as she would like.
That's a tough place to be in. I certainly can empathize where people may be coming from. For me, I have to say some of it was I met my husband in my 30s, and so I was a little bit more established at that time. And so when we met, I was already having success, and he was, I have to say, like, I always believe that he is my rock, right? Like I love to kind of fly but he kind of keeps me very grounded. And I am so grateful for him every single day because, he does do actually a lot for me around. So I'm very blessed. And I know that that's not necessarily the case for everyone. But he, helps out with the kids. Like he is the cook in our family because I don't cook. He wouldn't want me to cook. Like I try sometimes and it doesn't work
We all
out.
have our talents. We all have our
We
gifts.
do.
So,
We do. I'm like, give me a cook by numbers. So we do home chef sometimes, but I can follow directions. But I will say I do owe a lot of credit to him because he does give me the root system within our family to be able to go out and to, serve in a big way. And it's interesting you bring this up because I actually just had a conversation with an agent that I used to train and coach. And, she had reached out because she's really struggling. And she said, I'm struggling right now. I'm doing all these different roles. Like, how do you do what you do? Like, I'm comparing and I don't want to compare, but I am.
Yeah.
And, what I would say is you have to kind of look at where you are. Like, everybody's situation is different. And so, yes, my husband does allow me this opportunity. And, but, she was not necessarily also taking enough. She was comparing herself to me, but yet she was like full time caretaking for her parents too. And I don't have that, And so, first thing I said to her was, you have to be kind to yourself. Like, don't compare yourself to the success of another, because you're dealing with a lot. You are very special and unique in the ways that you're doing things. And so give yourself credit, number one, for all that you're doing to create this vision. And then number two, I think if your spouse is not as supportive right now, I mean, maybe having the conversation, open conversation about what you want and talking about both your goals and what's his goal or her goal, what are the goals, and is there a way that you can kind of make it work? And then the second piece to that is, and this is something that I learned later, but like, you also knowing when it makes sense to afford leverage. So if if your spouse is just not going to change, then is there a way that you can budget for having somebody come in and maybe helping with the kids so that you can go out?
Yeah.
Um, are there ways, because you're running a business?
Yeah.
So look at the numbers, is your time, what's your income per hour? If you can spend X amount of hours and create more clients that are going to make you a bigger return, then maybe it makes sense to hire a babysitter.
Yeah.
And then don't, get stuck in like a blame game of my spouse isn't being so, just look at it like, well, they're also doing this, and this is, my path, and try to compromise and find something that works for everybody.
Yeah.
Because then I think when you get stuck in thinking, well, if my partner's not doing this, you get stuck in resentment, and then you start holding yourself back in other levels.
Yeah.
So, maybe reframing it and having that open conversation first, and then looking like at what other options are available to you. Maybe you've got a friend that's staying home that like wouldn't that wants to support you, and maybe they might want to watch your kids for a few hours or help out with whatever so that you can support your dreams. I mean, surround yourself with people that want good things for you, and you don't know, and pray about it. Like, ask for guidance,
Yeah.
and you don't know what workings of, God may have in store for you,
Yeah. Great answer here. I'm going to hit you with another hard one. I don't know. They're just coming to me as you're talking. Because,
Okay.
honestly, we have a lot of hard conversations, and as you know, when you were managing many agents, and of course you're managing your team now, it's not just about selling real estate. I mean, you are literally a full-time therapist without the degree. So then you're trying to figure all the stuff out, so I'm just curious if you have any type of an answer for this, where let's just say you've got a couple that is doing life together, right? They're doing real estate together. One thing that I've admired about you is that you've always continued to keep your identity without losing the family.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, what ends up happening when married couples get into real estate together, they lose that individual identity. Because everything that they're doing, their marketing and the way that they talk to other people, the way that people talk to them is always about that team and that unit. And that's a great thing, right? We know in marriage, that's a great thing to have that unity, but it's not always fantastic in the business side of it, because you lose who you are, that uniqueness to you. And I'm just curious if you have any tips or tricks or just anything that you could give any advice to for women that have united with their husbands, their significant others, and how they keep their identity so that they know who they are still.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I know that can be tough, especially when you start to, your identity is already with your spouse, right? Like, there's a piece of that,
Yeah.
and then your business is too. And so how do you kind of create your own spaces? Um, I'm just a big believer, and I think that, for at least for my husband and I, we've really worked really well by having things that really bring us together, but also having our own kind of interests as well. And so, I think it's really important that I think we are more powerful and we are more insightful than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. And
Sure.
so I, whenever I'm kind of struggling with something, personally, I go into kind of a meditative state. So usually I'll like meditate, and then I'll often just get out my journal and start asking questions. Like literally, what is it that's going on now? Or what is it that I need to do to become more whole? Or, whatever the big question is, um, I believe that asking it is given. And so, but I think number one, not enough of us spend as much time in our own kind of not headspace, but like soul space,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
how do we kind of get back to the core of like our soul and where we're being guided to be and to do. And so I think that our emotions can give us it's almost like an emotional guidance system, right? So if we're feeling off kilter, then we know, okay, like something's not right because I don't feel good about this. So then it's up to us to take the next step and say, well, how do I find out what that is and tune back in to ourselves? Because you do have the answers. You just sometimes don't take the time to explore the answers or maybe see the signs around you. So I think it's really as simple as sometimes just getting out a journal and like writing down or praying about it. Like, God, help me understand where I'm supposed to go. Where you want me to go? I'm struggling with this. I'm open to hearing the answers. Please guide me.
Mhm.
And um, I think sometimes the answers can come through as insights right then. And sometimes it may take, some time of asking the question and then allowing the right answers to come through. They always do. It's just whether we're aware of the answers when we receive them.
That's
So,
great.
but it could be, you meet a friend and they start talking about something that prompts
Yeah.
it. Like you don't know how the inner workings are going to happen, but I think asking the question and then being open to receiving the answers is the key.
You talk a lot about self-care, and that's a lot where you get that energy from. Do you feel like in situations like this too, it's even more important to take more time for that self-care, where it's like, because once again, when you're eating with, when you're sleeping with, when you're working with that person 24 hours a day, you never have that separation. You never have that time for that soul care that you're talking about as well. Do you think it's really important that it has to become either a regular appointment or something that they just put in their lives, that listen, take a weekend away, take an evening away, those types of things? I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
So I do. I think it's absolutely, to me, I feel like it's one of the things, we live our lives and we kind of go through the motions often without thinking about like what it is that we're really creating. Like, what do you want for your family? Like, what do you want it to look like? And we spend a lot of time helping our clients, right? By like, working with our clients on what they want to create and what their vision is. But how often do we sit back and like look at what our own vision is for our life? Why are we doing what we're doing? What's our big why? And so personally, I think that I have a date with myself once a year where I'll go to my place is the spa. So
Mhm.
I just love a massage, love a spa, and I'll take the day, right? And I'll go and I'll take my journal and I'll have almost like a year, vision, like a vision. Where am I on track? Where do I want to tweak some things? Where do I need better self-care? And I really indulge in that like day. And
Mhm.
that's my day. And I'll have like lunch by myself at the spa. And I just, I don't know. I love that. So for me, it looks like that. And then it also is just a daily morning ritual. And I think it is important to have that time, like a date with yourself, because otherwise, you're going to live your life on other people's terms. Right. And if there is something going on in your relationship or your business, sometimes if you're just in it with that partner, then you're not open to seeing the flaws or the things where having perspective outside of that, I think, is super helpful. I actually created a little gift for the listeners of my podcast. It's called Free Gift from Kara.com. and I'll send it to you. And it's Kara with a K. But it's a downloadable like journal that basically gives people a place to stop and think about like the vision for their life and what they want to create in different buckets. And then I also have the affirmations that I use daily in there just to give some like inspiration and guide to others. And so I'm happy to share that with your listeners. But I think it's really just important that we do take that time for ourselves, to think about what we want out of our marriage. Like if it's all about the business, like make sure that you're also carving out some time for intimacy, and because it should be like life should be fun, and we need to. If something's off kilter, then it doesn't mean that it's all doomsday every day and that it's going to be like that forever. It just
Yeah.
means that it's worth a check-in and seeing how you can get back on track.
Say that
And it's
website
easier
one more
said than
time.
done, right?
Well, no doubt, there's no doubt about it. But when it starts with the intentionality and it turns into the action, of course, then you look at yourself, you look at, of course, how the people around you are living, and when you notice people are living in a different light, right? When they're just there's something about them. There's some type of energy you just want. Well, this is the reason why, right? Because of the intentional things you're doing. Give everybody that website one more time because I don't want them to miss that.
Yeah. So it's www.freegiftfromkara, that's Kara with a K, Kara.com. So www.freegiftfromkara.com.
Fantastic. We'll have that in the show notes as well, too. Well, you've given us some really great practical applications for energy in our life and that confidence in our life as well, too. I want to go to business as we kind of wrap this up. You were doing something really cool that you just started and you're seeing amazing results for it. So I want to give them that full spectrum because, having confidence in your life and your personal life is great. Having confidence because of the success in your business is super important as well, too. We're really trying to grow people and how they can create that wealth in their life. So I'd love for you to talk about this coffee thing that you're doing and the results that you're getting from it, because it's quite amazing.
Yeah. So, it's funny. This actually all started with it was my business coach and we were working together, and it was an idea that popped up. But it started also because I believe that when you are aligned with who you're meant to be in the world, like when you're really kind of living on purpose, and you can create like marketing and activities that like are just a natural extension of who you are in the world, then because it's not forced, it just resonates with people better, right? So like I talk a lot about that on the Soul Inspiring Business podcast, but like it's about aligning your soul right into your business. Like how do you become kind of one? And so we started this coffee with Kara because it came up because I number one, I love a good coffee shop. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
I love coffee and lattes. And I also thought it kind of came up during COVID where I really wanted to support local business owners. And so, and support them, for all they were doing and to help them through. And so there's this great local coffee shop. I love the owners and I love their energy. And so I went to them and I said, well, what if I, offered free coffee to your clients, we did it first where it was every Friday in August. So this is last August. And so I said, I'll be there from 7 to 11. I'll pay for all their coffee. And then while they're there, if they have a real estate question or they have some kind of advice like that they need, I'll be there to help them. And so they loved the idea. And I was like, well, this is great. This is fun. And number one, again, like I love coffee. I love supporting them and I love talking about real estate. So like, what could be better? So it started and honestly, like the results have been pretty astounding. So I think that again, when you look at like, when you have an intention that you're just naturally going to be in a position where you attract the right people to you, then it happens. And so I met just like one example, right? So I met this client at Coffee with Kara, then went on to help them buy a $3 million plus house, sell a $2 million plus house, help their client or their sister buy a $1+ million house, working on a $2 to $3 million commercial deal, like all from just one cup of coffee. I mean, actually two, because dad was there. So, it's crazy to me that, it's so like simple, but it's really for me, like, and the success is amazing. I mean, that is great. And but it's also just, I just get so much enjoyment out of being there and connecting with people.
Yeah.
So, and again, when your mantra is that you're just naturally going to be attracted to the right people to serve, and they're going to just find you, and you're being yourself in the world and in your business and looking for ways to create impact for people and looking to be of service for people, then it can't help but come back to you. And so I think that's it was a great success story because it all worked out really well. But and then the people that I've met has been incredible too there, that I see now regularly, because now we'll do it once a month.
Mhm.
But it's been kind of fun again to create business that's just aligned with what I would love to do anyway.
Yeah, that is what a great story. And I think what I hope that people don't miss is that not only was it the success of it because of what you were doing to give back, the generosity, like this, get this idea of giving it back or giving it out in slices and it comes back in loaves.
Mm-hmm.
But also you followed up with it, right? You got the opportunity, but
Mm-hmm.
then you actually you were able to be successful with that opportunity that you were given, right? You provided exceptionally great service to that person, and that's the important thing, is that the reason why all the other pieces of this came is because of all the hard work you've been doing in your career so far, that to be able to be in a position to get those continued referrals coming in. So I
Yeah.
want people to make sure that they acknowledge that and realize that as well too. Well,
Well,
as we
thank
wrap
you.
this
And
up,
one thing on that's
yeah,
kind of funny, sorry,
yeah,
is that I actually saw the client, because we just did a coffee with Kara today. So I
uh-huh.
saw one of the clients that I was just mentioning. And one of the things that he said was that he was just talking about like the experience from start to finish. And that like, even after they bought, like I still followed up to help make sure get a few things done. And that was very different from other people. So I think the thing that you have to also be really as you were mentioning, is that just be the best you can be in your profession.
Mhm.
So, of course, the right marketing is a great thing, but then like be the person that they want to work with,
Yes.
and be the utmost professional, all along the way. Not just to like get a sale right then, right? It's about the relationship long term, and how do you really create big value and living that.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely love it.
So,
Well, as we wrap this up, I know that people are going to want to continue to follow you. They're going to want to continue to get inspired by you. Tell us about your podcast and also the best place that they can find you on social media.
awesome. Yeah. So thanks again for the opportunity. This has been really fun. So the podcast is called the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. And again, that it was a passion. It's a passion project that I love doing, because it connects me with people like you.
Mhm.
But we really, I believe that there is a missing link sometimes between how we think about business and how we think about spirit and soul and faith. And I think when the two are kind of intertwined, and you look at the whole, from a holistic perspective, it's just, we have the power to go to bigger heights, so to speak. So that's a lot of fun. So they can definitely check me out there. My Instagram is Kara, Kara Chaffin. This is a mouthful. Chaffin Donofrio, Donofrio. So Kara Chaffin Donofrio.
We'll
That's
have
on
those in the
Instagram.
show notes. We'll have those in the show.
Okay. I know. Okay, cool. And then my website is kcdrealestate.com for anybody, that's looking in the DMV, and we're actually opening a location in Annapolis as well, which is really fun. So yeah, so those are kind of the best. I'm on Facebook as well. But I think like Instagram, my website are probably the best places.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, any last parting things that you'd love to talk to the audience as we wrap this up?
Uh, you know, um, I think what I would just encourage, anybody that's like struggling, or as my friend who came to me and was like, I don't know, I'm struggling because I'm looking at everybody else's success. Like, stop comparing yourself to somebody else's
Yeah.
success. I think one of the biggest things is figure out what success looks like to you. What
Mhm.
does it look like in your partnership? What does it look like in your business or your family? It doesn't have to look like, you don't have to have a podcast, and your business, your version of a business could be very different than mine, and that's okay. Figure out what is going to really make you whole. And that may take a little bit of time if you've never taken that time before to reflect on that. But I think that's really, as we look at how do you create a bigger vision and more a more fulfilling life overall, you have to just tune in and figure out what would that look like for you? What would feel amazing? And then pursue what feels amazing. And I think that, that's kind of one of the biggest things of advice I would give.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, I know our audience is digging this, and you left me inspired, and I know you left many others inspired. And speaking to the audience right now, I know that, hey, listen, the price of admission for this is free. The only thing that you have to do is make sure that you go and like Kara's pages, download her free journal that you can get at any point in time. And then, of course, obviously continue to follow her, watch her podcast, listen to her podcast, and then share this episode with those that you know that will be impacted by it. So as always, we appreciate you, and we look forward to talking with you guys on the next episode.